In games, you can go on sprawling adventures to find hidden treasures and ancient locations that can bring about mysteries beyond the wildest parts of your imagination. From desolated crypts beneath the ground to cities high up on a mountain, hidden above the clouds. No matter what it might be, it will always hopefully be something interesting. Unless you're doing a Forsworn themed mission. Let's be honest guys, we all know you hate Forsworn themed missions for the reach. More like get out of the reach. All that good stuff and Skyrim politics. But besides all this ranting and raving, within the lands of the Elder Scrolls games we have certain items known as Daedric Artefacts. And yes, this is how you spell artifacts, Western world. You hear me? It's time we tussle over our wording. So within the lands of Skyrim, you can find 16 Daedric artifacts, and yes, lore buffs in the basement, there are indeed 17 artifacts. Very acute observation of you to make. Well, that's because Jigalag is busy and can't come to the phone right now, so you're going to have to settle with 16. These 16 ancient objects are full of power and mystery and all share one thing in common: uniqueness, which is kind of weird to say. It kind of feels like a bit of a paradox, because if they are all unique, then they don't share anything in common, but the one thing they do share in common is that each one is unique. Ah, I've created a time loop. We all know you have your favorite artifact, and I'm sure you will let me know in the comments, but today I'm going to rank each artifact. I thought it would be a fun and interesting idea to take from pen and paper to keyboard and notepad, and well, here we are. Be sure to leave a like if you agree or a dislike if you don't agree. Ratings help, and if this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more videos like this one. But without further ado, let's relax and chill. Stick this on in the background if you'd like, and sure, let's start with my lowest ranked Daedric artifact. At the bottom of the list, I'm putting the Mace of Molag Bal. Yes, you heard me right, I have used this mace about as much as I've played Morrowind, which is not at all. Stamina enchantments in general aren't good in this game. It's impossible to argue using any sort of weapon or armor with stamina enchantments when all you have to do is be a veggie boy for your playthrough. Consuming vegetable soup, which you can cook at a fire pit, allows you to use infinite power attacks. The only real advantage to stamina is increased carrier weight, but let's not get too sidetracked. In Markarth, you will come across the House of Horrors quest, which, honestly, the first time you play it is a pretty cool quest. I love supernatural themed quests in fantasy games. They tend to bring about something memorable to the game and are usually a nice change of pace from the normal dragon killing you will be doing. You get some introduction to the Vigilance of Stendarr if you don't know who they are at this point, and both Molag Bal and Boethia, although you probably won't learn too much. The quest is fun and fast enough outside of the inability to skip dialogue, but the mace itself does 25 points of stamina damage and magicka damage for every hit. The magicka one is okay, but even so, mages in Skyrim have a lot of magicka and there are just better items to use. It does absorb the soul of an enemy you kill in 3 seconds. Now this is pretty cool, and this effect comes in handy with one of the other artifacts on this list, but I'm not ranking these items on synergy. I'm ranking them on use, and it seems far better to just use a conjured bound sword with the player still being able to absorb souls and pump out damage, obviously depending on perks. The mace looks awesome. It looks like a big chunky mace. This thing would 100% kill you instantly if someone was hit with one good blow, but aesthetics can only get you so far, and in this case it gets you at the bottom. Unpopular opinion, but I think the Mask of Clavicus Vial looks kind of ugly. I don't think it looks nicer whether it be in reference to a movie or not. I find its design almost as lacking as I do its effects. The mask is one of 2 rewards you can receive for completing the Aunt Daedra's Best Friend quest. The mask being the Daedric artifact and the Rueful axe being just a crappy axe that you absolutely won't use. The mask counts as a heavy armor item, so make sure you aren't donning the use of light armor, although I feel this would be much more suited for the light armor category. I don't know why. Its effects are 20% better prices if you're into battering and all that sort of thing, something that you can just use perks to do in general early on, and who really needs better prices with the sheer amount of loot you find. It's not a good argument since better pricing is better, but you aren't ever out of money in Skyrim. It's not like in Oblivion when you want a staff from a shop and you go out of your way to sell and haggle, all that good stuff. The next effect with the mask is that your speech gets increased by 10 points. I mean, just no, we're not even going to go over why this is just not decent. The last effect is 5% regeneration in the magicka field. Now I would say this is good, but you know, there are a bajillion other items with these kind of effects that are superior. Yes, it may be the headpiece, but if you want 5% regen, you can enchant something yourself. It's a tiny percentage. But yeah, this is 15. Only reason it isn't last is because it has more effects than the mace does. Okay, time for the Daedric quest I've done the least, ever. I'm pretty sure I've done this around 2 or 3 times, it can't be more than this. You may have done this quest a bunch, but I have a feeling you guys are on the same boat as me. The quest is called the Cursed Tribe, which you receive from the orc camp known as, and here is my attempt at pronunciation, Largashbur. That actually wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. The pronunciations were pretty easy to do, not compared to some of the other ones I'm not even going to try and pronounce. I was filled with dread, but I came out feeling good in this scenario. It's got a cool quest about an orc who sucks and his tribe thinks he sucks, so they want to deal with it. It does bring you to a cool little remote area near the Gerald Mountains. That's the mountain range connecting Cyrodiil and Skyrim for you geography labads like me. Now, the artifact you get for finishing this quest is known as Volendrung, which is as bad as it sounds. Now again, like the mace, it's cool in design, but by Talos, why are there stamina enchantments? Why are they a thing? Why do I need to suffer through them? Oh, that's right, it's because this hammer exists. Let's say you don't know what vegetable soups, alright? And you're sick of getting 2 or 3 power attacks in before having to let your stamina regenerate. You're going to want to have stamina enchantments. Well, this one actually has a useful one, or somewhat useful. The most useful we're going to see in this entire list anyway. It absorbs 50 points of stamina, so you've got a good old stamina sponge for yourself here, but here's the thing. I hate stamina stuff since I understand the inner secrets of vegetable soup, so I naturally just have to hate stamina orientated enchanted items, because vegetable soup is just better, will always be superior, and that's all I've learned, at all, ever. But yeah, number 14 is a pretty easy pick because of this. I think it wins mostly in aesthetic design, but the stamina sponge thing is pretty cool if for some reason you're allergic to vegetable soup. I don't think this is hard to decide for me personally, but for all of you who are about to be butthurt, I'm putting Nocturne's baby all the way down at 13. The skeleton key is a key that, by lore standards, holds great power, being able to open simple locks, portals, and then the doorway to the Evergloam itself, Nocturne's realm of oblivion, for all of you who didn't know. Now, the key doesn't count towards the Oblivion Walker achievement in Skyrim, but no, it is a Daedric Artefact, and within the game, works as an unbreakable lockpick as it has in other entries before Skyrim. If you so choose to not finish the questline, you can keep it. A really weird design choice made by Bethesda where you have to give it up, but nonetheless, we'll stick with it. I mean, it's cool and all, but at the end of the day, it's just a lockpick by the game standards, a glorified one at best, and I'm judging these artifacts by the inside of the game and not outside of it. The quest towards this artifact is cool, the quest being the entire Thieves Guild, and seeing Nocturne for a couple of minutes is pretty cool, but it's just not enough to sway me into wanting it in the single digit category. The reason it ascends the other 3 artifacts is because I find the other 3 extremely lacking, whilst this artifact holds a usefulness that can't be ignored. But yeah, it looks cool, I guess. It's got that cool blue orby end to it and all, but can I eat my food with it? No, I cannot. Nocturne should consider implementing the spoon function inside of this thing. I'd say a lot more people would give into it. If it was my choice, and I mean it, if it was my choice, and like this video was around my choices, but if it was my choice, the Skull of Corruption would be number 16. I hate this thing with a passion. It's so unbelievably useless for an artifact part of such a cool quest. You get this staff by completing the Waking Nightmare quest if you choose to kill Erender. Make sure you do that though, since this quest, like a lot of other quests in the game, has a somewhat impactful choice that impacts all but 0.225% of the game. The staff looks okay, it's just a skull and a stick. I'm pretty sure it's a mandatory input on bandit CVs to be able to put a skull on a stick. What cave doesn't have it? Goblins come out of goblin wombs basically with skulls on sticks, I'm pretty sure. Like, it makes sense, right? It would only also make sense to be honest with yourself and say how crappy this looks. So let's say you decide to use the staff. Well, what then? It deals 20 points of damage and increases to 50 points if powered with dreams collected from sleeping people you decide to go and be a creep around. If you cast the staff at a sleeping person, you will gather 5 dreams for the staff, but they have to be asleep, because if they are awake, it will be as if you were attacking them. So you get rewarded for being a bit of a slimy. Just remember that. Get those dreams, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, 50 points of damage just ain't that high on the higher difficulties, and it may come off somewhat useful at the early stage of the game, but onwards it's just useless. The quest for it is awesome though, and that's why I have it higher than the other ones. I'm putting all you jewelry wearing aliens to shame, okay? You will stay down here at number 11, and that's because you enjoy using the Ring of Namira, a ring that when worn allows the player to come along and eat corpses you find on the ground. It is kind of disgusting, but it allows you to immerse yourself inside the world of cannibalism. If you're into that sort of thing, or you're coming from Fallout and, you know, there's no comparison, but we made one anyway. If you decide to chomp on a corpse, be it one you found or killed yourself, you immoral thing, you will gain a 50-point boost to stamina, 50-point boost to health, and 50% extra health regeneration. Now I must clarify, the stamina boost is from just wearing the ring, and the health stuff is from having dinner, but nonetheless, it's just a big meaty tank item, and Skyrim contains a population with a 70-to-30 ratio and heavy to light bearings. I don't have use for this item when so many items exist to protect you. It stops being useful when, you guessed it, eat vegetable soup or cap armor, since health means jack when you're tanking dragon blows and instant killing Nazeems everywhere. The quest is also pretty meh and boring, but hey, you can make good use of your time by wiping out an entire secret cannibal cult. What's not to enjoy with that? So you know the way we all enjoy helping evil children forge an evil plot with evil intention to create an evil world? Well, that's not in this game, but Jarl Balgruf's son is a bit of a whack job, but he's got a quest for us that allows us to be the closest thing we can get to a giant sword-wielding samurai, ignoring everything and anything to do with the blades, of course. The quest for this artifact is extremely short and isn't the most interesting. However, the weapon, the ebony blade, is pretty cool. It's a two-handed sword that absorbs 10 points of health per hit and is upgraded by killing people who are registered in the game as friendly towards you. We humans also have a word for this. It's called friends. So to get stronger, you need to kill your so-called friends, and I'm sure that isn't difficult for you to do with about 3 characters in this entire game being worth even speaking to. So how does this powering up work? For every 2 friends you kill, it adds 2 to the strength of absorb health, the enchanted effect already on the sword. It caps off at 30, so you will get a lot of health back for the sword itself. It's pretty cool in my opinion, but it doesn't warrant putting in the single digit category. I sometimes wonder to myself as I read this out, because this part isn't actually wrote down here, should I have put this sword higher now that I think about the list I made? But no, we must stick to the choices we made. I think it's a good way to start off the good artifacts, or at least the ones I enjoy using the most. The idea for the blade is awesome though, but I don't tend to play a morally ambiguous characters, so I'll settle for having a cool sword on my wall. To kick off the single digit numbers, I'm going to put the ebony mail at number 9. Now I can already see it, somebody telling me that I'm incorrect for doing this, and you know, honestly, I probably am, but right now, I've dug my grave and I must sit with it. You can't get this artifact until at least level 30. You get it by completing the Boethiah's Calling quest. This quest will have you take someone innocent and unsuspect. I usually choose Sven. We all hate him, so it's an easy choice, and sacrifice him to Boethiah like the good Samaritan you are. You're doing justice to this world. The ebony mail is a heavy piece of armor that is enchanted with, ironically, muffle, and deals 5 poison damage per second to nearby enemies when you are either crouched or in combat. It's not a lot of damage, but it's the muffle enchantment on the ebony armor that makes it so worth getting. Also, there is this very nice and cool shadow effect that switches on when you crouch, because why else would you be using muffle? You ain't going to be doing it standing up. You can't put muffle on armor outside of boots, so it makes this a very, very unique piece of armor in that regards. Now, a lot of people won't find themselves using this due to how immersion breaking it can be to trot around with heavy armor on, but you have to remember, it's magically enchanted, so hey, maybe we can cut it some slack. But the quest isn't the most interesting, but I think the armor is cool with how unique it is, so maybe you disagree. Sure, let me know. At number 8 we have another piece of jewellery, non-Gucci bling and all that, the Ring of Hircine, something extremely useful depending on the character you are creating and using. This ring allows for additional werewolf transformations, which turns out is actually unlimited, surpassing the 1-a-day cap we know and hate so much when playing as a furry canine. The alternative item to this is the Savior's Hide, which is a cruddy piece of light armor that you absolutely do not want to take no matter what. You think you know, you don't know, so take the raid. But also make sure you don't kill Sinling when you do the quest, Ill Met by Moonlight, which you can find in the small and active town of Falkreath. It's honestly kind of a kip to be fair, but hey, preference is preference for a reason, even if you're wrong. Being a werewolf on higher difficulties can be quite annoying, with you having to wait 24 hours sometimes to regain a transformation token, and is virtually impossible to properly use on survival mode. However, the ability to turn back into a werewolf no matter how many times we press the button is 100% what you want to do, and for that reason I place it much higher on the list. It's honestly just a great limit breaker for a limit that a lot of us deem shouldn't have been in the game from the start, but hey, that's down to opinion. Next we have Spellbreaker, the only shield artifact to make its way onto this entire list, and I really debated where to put this one. I'll be honest with you, it was hard to decide whether or not it should have been in this spot or even higher, but I've settled with number 7. Spellbreaker is the reward you get for doing the very fun quest, The Only Cure. It may start off as a boring fetch quest, but it turns into a fun dungeon delving quest soon after. But when you return to the Daedric Prince Periite, he will reward you with Spellbreaker, a unique shield that when blocking produces a ward-like effect that protects the player from 50 points of slaptastic magic damage. The only thing that can't protect you from is Dwemer's Steam. This shield makes fighting dragons much easier thanks to the ward effect. You can really annoy the crap out of dragons by using this shield. It's a better ward than lesser ward, but weaker than steadfast ward. I think there's a 10-point difference in between each, but yeah, it's a nice middle ground, and this shield is super useful and super cool looking with a really nice quest alongside it. If not for the DLCs, this would be my favorite shield. This may surprise a lot of you, but I'll be putting the Wabbajack at number 6 and not in the top 3 because it just doesn't serve me the purpose I want. I think of it like this. Imagine you were playing the game on Legendary, which I made a full-time job out of doing badly for the years 2020 and 2021, and you decide which artifact will help you progress the game faster. The Wabbajack just isn't that. Its biggest weakness turns out to be its unpredictability. Now, of course, this is the Wabbajack. It at its core is unpredictable, but that just isn't helpful when you're playing the game on higher difficulties. Now, of course, on lower difficulties this ain't an issue and the staff is just insanely cool and powerful at times. It's also so much fun to use given any encounter. It has up to 20 different effects, I think, don't hold me to that, but all of them range so differently, from a simple fury spell all the way up to a paralyzed spell. It's just so much fun to use, and anything in connection with the Daedric Prince of Madness, Sheogorath, makes for a fun use of your time. Its quest to get this staff is also very fun and very different from anything else in this game. It has you see inside the mind of an Emperor of Tamriel who went crazy. I'm pretty sure it's one of the Pelagius, but seriously, if you've never done this quest, which is impossible to think, you should do, and if you have done it, you should do it again. I find Wabbajack very deserving of slot 6. We are now down to the top 5 of the list. This is a long script and I'm hoping is a much longer video than I usually make. I've put a lot of effort into making this video as clean as possible for the viewing enjoyment, so I hope it's paying off. Do make sure to leave a like or dislike if you haven't at this point, or a comment letting me know what you think of the list. Anyways, the top 5 are the artifacts I use the most, the ones I find the most useful throughout any playthrough. So number 5 will be the biggest nail clipper you've ever seen in the Elder Scrolls with a twist. It kills you instantly. A fan favorite, featuring itself in multiple Elder Scrolls games, Maroon's Razor has a chance to instantly kill an opponent. You gain it as a reward for completing the Pieces of the Past, which you get at some point during your playthrough when a new museum opens up in Dawnstar. As if the Elder Scrolls didn't have enough tourist attractions, now it has a museum too, which features a boatload of knowledge on the mythic Dawn cult. I just realized museums in Dawnstar and I made a joke saying boatload, but it kind of comes off as a pun, but I didn't intend that, so if you think that was intentional, it wasn't. Just remember that. But anyway, you remember the red hood wearing dudes from Oblivion? That's the Mythic Dawn. You have to assemble the razor together by collecting its components, so this is done by the game sending you to different dungeons across the game world. When assembled, you get a dagger that has a 1.98% chance to kill anything it hits, bar Karstag and Mirak, which means them two are cheating because it makes no sense how they are immune. Also, the Ebony Warrior can deflect the instant kill effect onto you, so do not hit him. You're basically helping him to kill you. But yeah, a super cool dagger with an okay design. It looks quite bland, but it's an awesome effect with an awesome quest. At number 4, we have the hand that touches the beacon, the glistening statue that soars its head high into the skies, whilst also throwing us up there too. That's right, I'm talking about Meridia and her cool ass quest. In my opinion, the best Daedric quest featured in the game. You get a reward by the end of it that gives you a cool, lit up, ass kicking sword against the undead. The dungeon itself is amazing, it's a lot of fun to traverse, the enemies are unique, the boss is cool, the quest is cool, the loot is awesome, and it's just overall very fun to go through each time. The quest is called the Break of Dawn, and you should do it from the moment you can because it's just fun. The sword has an incredible design, it looks stunning, and you just know I 100% did not trick the game into giving me 2 every time I get the chance. I would never do that. So the sword would be higher if not for its limits. The sword's effect only works on the undead, enemies like vampires and Draugr. If you attack undead with the sword, you have a chance to make undead explode into blue flames upon death, which sometimes can create a chain reaction that is very satisfying to watch happen. The explosion also causes surrounding undead to flee, so that's pretty cool. Did I mention it sets the undead on fire too? So make sure to stock up on soul gems of all sorts to make sure you survive all the desecrated crypts you will be traveling, because let's be honest, this game contains more crypts than you can possibly imagine. This is what makes this sword so useful. You can just switch to it when the appropriate time is to do so. So we move on to the top 3. At this point, you know of the 3 artifacts I have left. None of the other ones matter when it comes to the top 3, but that won't stop most of us from having a different opinion, which is a good thing. Everybody should take this list as a means of deciding on their own favorite 3 and not necessarily their top 16. I really decided amongst myself whether or not I would put the Ogma Infinium in first place, but I decided against it due to one reason. Its quest is not really all that cool and thrilling. Collecting different samples of blood is cool and all, but there isn't any special place we got to visit, unless you count a mouthful of Hermes tentacles down your throat. Mr. Daedric, Prince of lots of books, also likes to keep you around for as long as he can, since his voice seems to break the sound barriers of slowness. Your reward for completing the quest, discerning the transmundane, is the Ogma Infinium, an ancient tome of knowledge written by Xerxes, the wizard sage from long ago, also known as the Aegis One. He sounds pretty ominous and cool. The book itself looks awesome. It looks like something you shouldn't be holding probably, and there also seems to be flesh. I think these look like flesh. It's probably leather, but I want to assume they're flesh patches, and boy oh boy, does its rewards make you feel like you just got a reward. After receiving the book as a reward, make sure you read it, because doing so will open up 3 paths for you to choose from, and whatever one you choose will invest 5 skill points into the 5 skills on that path. For example, choosing the path of might will invest 5 skill points into heavy armor, one-handed, smithing, two-handed, archery, and block. This just has an awesome reward, and yes, you can 100% glitch this thing out to use multiple times, but you aren't going to do that since you play this game completely legit, and you know you do. Azura comes along and makes us feel good about ourselves when we are playing as a Dunmer. She loves the Dunmer, and she likes to show up in every game and alongside us make it about herself. Now, Skyrim isn't the first game to show the Azura Star artifact. I know it was in Oblivion 2 for sure. This artifact in Skyrim contains a quest extremely similar to the one that the Skull of Corruption has. It has 2 different choices, and while not a vastly huge choice, you do get a different artifact to benefit you in a different way. Azura Star works as a giant soul gem that will infinitely hold white souls to help you out in your enchanting journey. However, the alternative to this is the Black Star, which is what I almost always pick no matter what I do, and that allows you to infinitely hold black souls. Now, I must correct myself when I say hold infinitely. I mean it holds on to 1 soul, and when you use that, the star won't break, so in that department it kind of sucks, but god, do you know how hard and annoying it is to get a hold of black souls early on. Let's say you're playing the game legit. This is a great way to do it. Honestly, as I sit here and look upon all these different artifacts, I find myself wondering if Azura star actually belongs as number 2. But yeah, for me it does. This star is very easy to get very early on and making getting a good soul worth it, you know, in case you want to get yourself that cool sword made or whatever it is you do. The quest is also one of the most unique in the game, with it having you teleported to the inside of a soul gem. What's not cool about that? You get to fight some Jamora and a cool badass mage, whilst also getting a cool reward for it. Simple things call for simple liking. If you are new to the channel, then this will make no sense to you. However, if you are a recurring watcher, then you will 100% understand why this is here. I am an avid player of the legendary difficulty. I have spent over a year learning how to play Skyrim on its hardest difficulty and trying to master it, and when in doubt, I pull the rose out. The sanguine rose is incredible. You can summon a Jamora Lord for 60 seconds. It doesn't cost you anything bar a small bit of charge on the staff. The staff itself is beautiful, and we all know how fun and enjoyable the quest is to do. It has some of the funniest dialogue in the entire game for us to all enjoy, but I really can't get over how beautiful the staff itself is. It's very well designed and the spell it casts is powerful. Guys, it won't be until the late game when you are conjuring Daedric Lords, so to be able to do it from the early game when the staff is just so helpful, I correct myself, Jamora Lords, not Daedric Lords. But when you are thrown against tough enemies, you'll be grateful because the Jamora Lords are insanely powerful and make a legendary so much more doable. The Conjured Lord is also somewhat leveled, so it stays strong for a large portion of your game. There really isn't anything to hate about it. You get married to a Hargraven, you get to threaten Isolde. What isn't to love about this quest and reward? There you have it, 16 artifacts ranked by what I deem their value to be. This was fun to type up. It took a while, but I suppose things that you enjoy to do take a while. Hopefully you have figured out your own favorites and such. I'd love to hear. I'm not sure what I'll look into and rank next, but I'm sure we can figure it out. We have plenty of time to do so and plenty of resources to look upon. But you know the drill. Be sure to leave ratings and whatnot. Turn on the game and try out an artifact you haven't before. See if there is a build you can incorporate one into. Whatever it is, enjoy.